As soon as I open it, roaches. To where when I walked in the house,
did you scream?
You don't know my life, bro.
Welcome back to Econix Talks, guys.
When I pop up, everybody gonna be like, man, overnight success.
Lifestyle topics, entrepreneurship, and investing.
Are you serious about this? Because if you are, then I'm willing to back the business.
We want to inform you, educate you, and empower you so that you can maximize your life. Let's get started. What's up, everybody? I want to give a huge shout out to all the new supporters that have joined us this year, and I can never forget my day one, so shout out to y'all too. As most of you guys know, running an independent podcast takes a ton of time and energy. Now, if you ever benefited from an episode of this show or mini episodes and you'd like to support, you can do that by buying us a coffee. You can reach that by the support link in the show notes, or if you're following me or Econix on Instagram, it'll be in the link in the bio. And this will be used to cover any expenses that come with the show. I appreciate everything you guys have done, and this has been such a fulfilling year. Now, on to this episode. Welcome back to another episode of Econix Talks, guys. Today we have Nikki Donnell. She is the founder of Black Girl Budget. So I'm super excited to have her on today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Joshua, for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I was telling you earlier, I love a good Tampa native, so I'm very excited to be on the podcast.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up. So I'm going to start off by just telling us just a little bit about your story. Obviously, you're very passionate about, finances and helping people make sure their budgets is right, because most people don't even know how to budget money and the first step into, doing that kind of stuff. So just give me your background and just how this became a real passion for you.
Yeah, so a lot of people tend to forget that I'm actually a lawyer. So I did go to law school. And when I graduated in 2016, I was working for a state government. I was getting paid once a month, not every 2 weeks like everybody else. I was getting paid once a month at the end of every month. And I immediately realized that I had to budget. It was not an option for me to just kind of wing it. So I started budgeting. But what I've noticed is with budgeting, I was able to pay off credit cards. I think I paid off like $2,000 in credit cards. I bought myself a new cell phone. I hadn't had one in years. The screen was cracked. It was a real rough situation coming out of law school.
Yeah.
So I was able to pay off $2,000 in credit card debt. I was able to save $10,000 to buy a home. I was able to save $10,000 in my emergency fund, bought a new car, bought a dog. Budgeting really helped me level up my finances and my life in general. But what's crazy is I was only making $43,000 at the time.
It don't take a lot.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
You need millions of dollars to actually start saving and actually start building wealth. You don't.
Nope. You can literally start if you're making $30,000. Start from wherever you are. So I took that money. I started budgeting. I started saving. I even started investing. And before I knew it, people were like, we know how much money you make. What you mean you bought a house? What you mean you bought a car? And I started talking to people about budgeting, how I, reduce spending and expenses. And that's when I realized that a lot of Black women who I knew as friends and family were like, I'm not familiar with the concept. They knew about budgeting, but it was always a negative connotation. If you're budgeting, that means you're broke, you're poor, you don't have any money. And so I wanted to change that narrative, because any millionaire that you think of, they're budgeting. They're not blowing their money out left and right. They know what's coming in and they know what's going out. So keep that in mind.
What people don't realize is the government has a budget. It has to get approved.
Yes.
The federal government has a budget. Every business has a budget. They have a budgeting committee. They have a planning committee for the budget that goes before the board. When I tell you every business that's ran at a very high level, you got to have a budget. If you don't know where your money is going, you're going to end up broke.
Exactly. That's what I try to tell people. So just changing that narrative about, it's a bad thing to be budgeting. I wanted Black women specifically to budget because we carry high loads of student loan debt. We also tend to be the head of household in some cases. Or if not head of household, we're helping out other family or our parents, right? So I was like, listen, Black women, we also making money. We're entrepreneurs. We're the most educated. We to be raking in money, but also keeping the money in-house where we're saving and we're investing and then paying off a lot of our debt. So that's how Black Girl Budget started. And now it has grown into the brand that it is today. So I do content on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all over the place. And I help individual clients create and maintain their budget so that they can start to level up their finances.
That's awesome. So, and y'all, I just want to tell everybody who's listening, a lot of times people want to be like leaders in their own industries. They want to be, they want to be famous and they want all of these people to follow them and all of this stuff. But here's the deal, man. If you're going to be that person, you have to live that life.
Yes.
Like, that's what people don't get, is that if you aren't living the lifestyle, like if you aren't budgeting, you really can't teach anybody, because when you start to actually meet with clients, they're going to ask very detailed questions. Yes. And you can tell somebody who knows how to actually budget, because they can give you like details. Hey, do exactly this, and it will get you from A to B. And so I love that about you. Like, you're a practitioner. You aren't just out here just teaching something you want to
live. Yeah. When I first started budgeting in 2016, I think my spending money was like $100 a month, which breaks down to $25 a week. So when it came to being creative and trying to figure out what can I do for free, what can I do that's low cost, I was coming up with all kinds of stuff because I wanted to get out the house, but I also was aggressively paying down debt at the same time. So now when people ask me, I'm like, oh yeah, I've done that before. Let me give you some, pieces of advice. So it definitely makes a difference when you are working with someone who's been through some similar experiences.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So my first actual question for you is, and you kind of answered this, but I would like you to go in a little bit more detail. So how important is budgeting in achieving financial stability, and why is that important?
Oh my gosh, budgeting is, I call it the foundation of your finances. So I know like a few years ago, I was talking to someone, they were like, well, you only talk about budgeting. You don't talk about like the important stuff like investing. I was offended because I was like, I do talk about investing. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to invest in, but we're going to talk about investing from the standpoint of, you got a Roth IRA. The maximum contribution is $6,000, $6,500, right? How can you afford to put in $6,500 in the next year or the next 16 months? We're going to use your budget. So if you can afford $300 a month, you might be able to reach that goal. But you got to look at your budget and figure out, what do I have coming in? What are all my expenses? And what do I have left over? That leftover money, that's going to help you max out your IRA, which is going to allow you to buy stocks and ETFs and anything else you want to buy. So I talk about investing from the standpoint of, how can you afford investing? But as far as like what to invest in, that's your job. Because what I invest in might not be the same thing for you, depending on your interests and your ultimate goals. So I always tell people, budgeting is the foundation of your finances. You can't have financial success without budgeting.
That's real. That's a great answer, because it's funny somebody actually asked you that. You can't even invest without having the money to afford it.
Nope. Nope.
So and it's funny because, sometimes a lot of people, they want to kind of put you into a box, not a box, but they want you to do everything. But you got to, in this world, you have to have a specialty. You got to specialize in something, and then you grow from there. So like, your focus is not the investments, but what your focus is like, I know how to get you to a point where you can free up some dollars, so that way you can go ahead and now take that wherever. Because investing is really easy. People think that you got to like look up stocks and this and that. No, you put it on auto pay. You get an advisor and you knock that out and be done. That's as simple as that.
Exactly. Especially if you're doing like that long-term investing, like it's not and some people do the, let's move money, let's buy this, let's sell this. That's fine if you want to do that. But like you said, for those long-term investors who are like, this is my strategy. I'm putting in the money and I'm just going to watch it grow. You need to find the money in your budget and then go from there.
Yep. That's real. So my next question is, what are some common mistakes that people make when creating a budget? And then how can they kind of avoid that?
Yeah. So I do budget reviews, right? Where I have people submit their information to me and 3 of their goals, some of their challenges, and I will create a full budget for them. One thing I do is I ask people, send me your current budget. Like what we're currently working with. A lot of times people will tell me they don't have a budget whatsoever. That's fine. But even when I'm talking to people about what their current budget is or what they want to have in their budget, the most common mistake I notice is that people don't give themselves spending money, which sounds weird because it's like, well, I thought I'm budgeting, I can't spend money. You should have spending money in your budget. And when you don't, what happens is You got all of your bills going out, and your money is going toward all of your expenses, and you haven't given yourself anything. So you're talking about 30 days without doing you're walking around in the park. Right.
Gas.
Exactly. So you're like, you need some kind of spending money because you don't want to just be stuck in the house. And so what I will tell people is, let's see how much you can afford based on what your goals are. And I will tell people, I just talked to a client the other night and I'm like, let's make $500 your spending money for the month. And she's like, okay, I can do that. So I use that for gas and groceries. And I said, no. Your spending money is for you to spend. You have a separate line item for your groceries. You have a separate line item for your gas. Your spending money is just for you because at some point in the month, you're going to eat out. You're going to, buy a t-shirt, get something from Amazon, go to the movies, whatever that thing is. That's what your spending money is for. Now, the other thing is, I've also noticed that people don't break out a lot of their expenses. They group it all together. So one thing that I've been dragging my clients through the mud with is listing out all of their subscriptions. I have a client who's got like $250 a month in subscriptions. I kid you not. Right?
That sounds like me.
Yeah. So she knows it's $250 a month. But when we started listing it out, she was like, oh, shoot, we can cancel this. We can cancel that. And then we can start to see what bills and expenses do you really want to keep. So those are like the top two things that I've noticed in the last 60 days. Give yourself spending money, even if it's not a lot, give yourself $40 a month. And then make sure that you are canceling those subscriptions when you're no longer using them.
Yeah, that's dope. So I know for me, when I started budgeting, like, getting real deal with it, or even if I get off my budget and I have to figure out, okay, how do I get back on my budget? Because you're not always looking at it, right?
Right.
So for me, one of the things that my first starting place is I pull my bank statements. Pull my bank statements because every little thing, and I go to everything I spent, and I'm like, boop, boop, boop. And so what I'll do is I know me, so I know the majority of my money that's outside of fixed expenses, right? Or things that you got to take care of every month is food, and that's most people. And so I ain't gonna lie, just all transparency. When I was working at AT&T, I ended up looking at my budget. Girl, I was spending like $400 a month on just eating out. Because I wasn't cooking at all. I was staying at home with my mom. So I was still like living at home. So I didn't have no rent. So I'm just out here just.
You was living your best life.
And the crazy part was I was saving money.
Wow.
Every month I was saving money. I was living good, but I was aggressively saving money.
Yeah.
Not having no rent, not having this. And I was just like, but when I looked at how much money was literally just going out to eat, and I was just like, dang, Josh, that's investment money. But then it came to like struggling with like discipline and this. And then I'm like, oh, I want to go here. And, all of that stuff that you kind of deal with when you're looking at your budget. So how often should you look at your budget or update your budget?
So I recommend a minimum of updating your budget. I'm going to say minimum of twice a month, but realistically speaking, you should update your budget once a month because in a given week, right? Like let's think April 1st to April 7th. You're going to pay some of your bills and expenses. You're going to spend some money. You might have to send money to somebody. So you want to know in the first 7 days of the month, how many expenses have I paid? You want to cross those out, check them off, make sure you haven't paid more than what you estimated. But then you also want to know how much money have I spent? Because then for the following week, you're like, okay, I've currently spent $200, but I only have $200 left for the month. So it's going to help you when you're looking at your budget every week. It's going to help you determine, do I have a lot of spending money? Do I need to cut back? Are there some bills or expenses that I haven't paid that I need to pay? Like doing it on the weekly basis is really going to help you keep up with your finances.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good answer. You know what you're doing, girl.
Yeah.
Can you suggest any effective methods for tracking expenses?
So my main recommendation is writing it down somewhere where you can see it. I know a lot of people will use apps, and I can't say like use this specific app versus that one because I've not personally tried any of the apps.
I'm an app person. See, I'm a subscription person. I got apps. I got
all the things.
Spreadsheet. I got it all.
So if you're really good with apps, then find an app that works for you. If you're really good with spreadsheet, like I have a client who sent me her budget and it was like formulas everywhere in the budget, which I thought was beautiful. I'm not a big Excel spreadsheet person, but she absolutely loved it. So if it's a spreadsheet, if it's a notebook, if it's an app, do what works best for you. My main recommendation is writing it down, because as you're writing it down, it's like you're putting it out onto the notebook, you're remembering things. And then when you come back and you're physically crossing it off of your to-do list, it's like, okay, this is taken care of. It's out of my mind. But it also requires you to think a little bit more about how much you're spending and what you're spending money on, because you can actually see it.
Yep. Bingo. And, I tell people this all the time. It's just like any goal that you have. So when you're aware of where you are in relation to your goals, it makes it like you get it. And so, when you look at your budget every week, now if you like you said, if you overspent, if you didn't spend enough, so you got some money to reallocate somewhere else. That's kind of how that goes. So how would you actually suggest somebody handle any unexpected expenses that necessarily weren't accounted for in the budget? Like, oh, car just went ham, or like, I can get new tires, or mama need $30. You know how that goes.
So there are a couple of different categories that you just made me think of. So first thing, we're going to talk about cars, because people are always like, oh, I use my emergency fund for my car. Your emergency fund is not for your car. Let me just say it again. Your emergency fund is not for your car maintenance, right? You get a vehicle, you know that you got to get new tires, you got to get new filters, you got to get an oil change. Those are things that are inherent in having a car. So they're not emergencies. They shouldn't be unexpected. You can have a line item. You can have a savings account specifically for your car for maintenance, but it's not an emergency because you knew it was going to happen. You drive your car, the tread on your tires is going to go down. We need new tires, right? So when we talk about unexpected expenses, it's really what kind of unexpected expense? Like, oh, my engine went out. That's an emergency. You weren't anticipating that, but you got an emergency fund for that. Maybe mom does need $30, $300, and it's an emergency. You have an emergency fund for that. If it's an unexpected expense like, oh, I forgot to cancel my gym membership and they done double charged me and I can't get a refund, that's something that should probably come out of your spending money, which is just, for miscellaneous stuff and whatever you want to spend on, because it's not a true emergency. Now, it really depends on the cost and stuff like that as well. But for the most part, your emergency fund is specifically for emergencies. Like, if you don't pay for it, it will significantly alter your lifestyle. That's how I define an emergency. Other than that, though, there's pretty much any other expense can be taken from your spending money, and you just don't spend as much that month. You don't spend $400, you spend $350, or you spend $300. So you really have to keep in mind that you don't want to just use your emergency fund because you don't want to use your spending money. Like, your emergency fund is for emergencies.
Where would you say the easiest place to cut expenses is? I'm curious.
Oh man, the easiest place is going to be subscriptions. Okay. Another easy place is just spending in general. I can't tell y'all how many clients are victims of Amazon, Klarna, Afterpay. Capital One has a chokehold on the girls, but it's really a lot of just spending, because people are either trying to create an image that they want to present to other people, or they're just trying to keep up with other people as far as like traveling and vacation, stuff like that. So the number one thing that I always look at is how much money are you spending in a month? I had one client who's like, about $800. Not anymore. You've got $400, and the other $400 we're saving, we're paying down debt, and we're in debt.
Right. I like that. So now how would you advise somebody? Let's say you got somebody that's starting out just for the first time. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to start. Like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. I never want to touch this stuff. Because there's so many people like that. That's why they don't do a budget, because it can be overwhelming. So where would you suggest they kind of get that starting block?
Black Girl Budget. Just come on over to Black Girl Budget.
Yeah.
Y'all know I'm self-promoting now.
I like it.
But realistically, I mean, honestly, yes, Black Girl Budget, because I give out a lot of free information, tips, and suggestions on the Black Girl Budget Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter accounts. All of that information is free. There's also a Black Girl Budget podcast, absolutely free. You can go listen to that. Now, there are some resources on the Black Girl Budget website, but then I also do budget reviews. So if you find like, oh, shoot, I'm so overwhelmed. I had a client who was like, I didn't submit anything because I'm overwhelmed and I don't know where to start. So we did a budget coaching session where we got on Zoom. We talked to each other for about 2 hours. We went through all their expenses, all their challenges, and we created a budget for them. So I give budget coaching sessions and budget reviews. 2 different services, but either way, Black Girl Budget is going to be able to help you. I would say definitely start with a lot of the free, I call them finfluencers, financial influencers, on Instagram and on YouTube, because a lot of the information is really good out there and it's free. So start on social media.
There you go. I like it. So I know you just mentioned about like that lifestyle, right? You just talked about people trying to keep up with a lifestyle, and Capital One got people in chokehold, and so does Amazon. I mean, I know people who literally have like boxes delivered every day, and I'm clicking.
Yep.
So how would you suggest that someone can stick to, their budget when they're facing all of these different temptations with purchasing things on Amazon and just like dealing with the social pressure of trying to keep up?
Yeah. So you have to have goals. For every client that I work with, every budget review, we're going to talk about your goals. If your goal is to pay off a $3,000 credit card, that's what we're focused on. So the first thing you're going to do is delete your Amazon app if you don't have the self-control, right? Delete social media if you don't have the self-control. But the first thing we want to do is figure out what your goal is, because whenever you feel pressured to spend money that's not in the budget, you literally have to manually remind yourself like, nope, I want to pay off this credit card so next year I can do X, Y, Z. I want to, invest so I can retire early, or I want to buy my kid a car so I can't buy. You have to remind yourself of the goals, because it'll kind of fight the temptation on your behalf. You're like, no, I got goals. But when you're just budgeting just to budget and you have no goals, you're not trying to do anything, it doesn't actually make it easier. So you really do need to say, I'm budgeting for a specific purpose, and that purpose is going to help me focus and stick to the budget. That's
real. So my personal experience when it comes to budgeting, so I had to work on my credit. This was some years ago. It's not that I had bad credit. I just knew like, pay your bills. That's it. I had no understanding of utilization. I just knew pay it on time. That's what you're supposed to do. And so that's kind of what I did. But I wanted to buy a house, right? And I was like, all right, this is what I want to do. But like you said, I had a goal in mind. I had a focus. My budget became intentional. I had an intentional budget, right? And so for anybody who's listening out there, what she's talking about is having a goal, because you have to be intentional about where you're going with your finances. So if you want to pay down a certain amount of debt, cool. If you want to buy a new car, cool. None of these things are bad. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a goal in mind, then you just budgeting like aimlessly. Like there's like, what's the purpose? So you got to have a purpose to your bank account.
Exactly. And I had one client, she wants to buy a house. And I was like, that's beautiful. In 2024, you can buy a house. But for the rest of the end of 2024, I'm like, you can buy a house. But for the rest of 2023 and all of 2024, here's what you have to do. You got to pay off these debts. You got to increase your credit score, put some money to the side for a down payment, get your emergency fund. So like when we talk about goals, people are like, I want to buy a house. I want to buy a car. The goal isn't tomorrow. Like you're not going to hit that thing tomorrow. You got to put in some work ahead of time, and then you'll reach the goal. So like, imagine the goal is just far out in the distance. And between you and that goal is all the work that you're going to do every single day. Every day you wake up and you're like, all right, I'm not spending more than $15 today. Or, you know what? I can't spend anything because I've already spent my money. So when you think about goals, it gets overwhelming and you're like, whatever, I'll just buy a house when I buy it. But every day you literally have to wake up and make the decision that you're going to reach that goal based on today's decisions. So it really is going to help you in the short term and the long term.
Nikki, let me ask you this. So obviously you're talking about the goals and stuff. So how would you suggest somebody kind of like, not say make their goals smaller, but celebrate smaller wins? Because obviously like nobody buys a house tomorrow. So what are some kind of like benchmarks that people can look to see like, okay, I'm on the right path. Like this is getting me to the goal, because those are just as important, because what happens is you got to build momentum. You got to build momentum. If you don't have no momentum, then that's just going to die. But if you don't celebrate yourself along the way, it's the same concept. You're just going to die out, because now you just, again, working without a purpose. So what are some smaller goals that people can kind of look to celebrate along the way?
I love this question because people don't celebrate themselves enough. And so they'll achieve something and they're so focused on the big goal that they're just like, it's almost like a rat race to get to that big goal, but you should be celebrating the small things. So for example, with an emergency fund, I tell people you got like a mini emergency fund at $500. You got your emergency fund at $1,000, and then you can go up from there. When you hit a $500 balance in your emergency fund, you can take yourself out to dinner for like $50, right? Make it proportional to the thing you're celebrating. Don't go out and, buy a Birkin or anything, but you can take yourself out on a nice little celebration date.
No red bottoms?
No red bottoms. No red bottoms. So, you can celebrate, make it proportional to the thing that you're celebrating. The other thing I always recommend is when you're paying down debt, use the snowball method, because that's going to help with that momentum.
Talk about that. Break that down.
Yes.
What's the snowball method?
I live
Give me the game, girl. Give me the game.
You cannot convince me that the snowball method is not where it's at. So if you guys don't know what that is, let's say you've got like 3 different debts. One is 500, one is 1,000, one is 3,000. You're going to start by paying off the smallest debt, the $500 one. Then you're going to pay off the $1,000 debt, and then you'll pay off the $3,000 debt. So snowball, like think of a small snowball rolling down a mountain, and it gets bigger as more snow accumulates. That's basically the snowball method. I love this method because once you pay off the $500 debt, you're like, oh, shit.
Got all of this? What?
Right. That was easy. I paid off $500. And then you celebrate, right? You might have a friend go out with you to dinner. Y'all celebrate, nothing too big. And then the next month you start focusing on that $1,000. Now it might take you 2 months to pay off the $1,000, but you pay off the $1,000 and now you're Superman. You're like, this is easy. I could have started doing this a while ago. And that's going to build up that momentum. So when it's time to pay off that $3,000 balance, it's going to be hard. It's going to take a little longer, but because you got that momentum, because you've seen it's possible to pay off debt before, you're like, yeah, in 4 to 6 months, $3,000 paid off. And now you can say, I've paid off over $4,000 in 8 months or whatever that time frame is. But I always say, start with the snowball method. Every time you pay off one of those debts, celebrate, tell somebody about it, and just make sure that your celebration is reasonable.
That's real. And so in your own personal life, I know you mentioned some of this earlier, but please break that down in your snowball effect. Because I think that would be so cool to like talk about like your own personal experience and like how you were able to pay this and this and this and how it changed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So my snowball method started with my New York and Company credit card. I think the balance was like $500. Why was I buying clothes on credit? I don't know. And my parents told me, girl, do not get a New York and Company credit card. You don't need it. But I went and got one anyway. So I graduate law school. I get my job getting paid once a month. And the first thing I did was pay that credit card off. Now, I didn't have the card for a long time, so I closed it. It didn't affect my history that much. The next thing I wanted to pay off was my $600 cell phone balance. So I paid that off. But it wasn't that hard because I had just paid off the New York and Company card. Then I think from there, it shot up to like my $1,700 Walmart balance or something. So I paid that off next. Then I started working on my student loans. So, it really does, not only does it build up momentum, but it built up confidence. I've never been scared of my debt. And I went to law school, so I got the student loans, okay? But I've never been scared to pay off my debt because starting at that small New York and Company balance, I know I'm capable of doing it. And even if I get a new balance, I pay that off too. So it really does help. It's helped me in my personal experience build confidence as well as momentum. And like, I can have a $5,000 balance right now. Okay, let me set a plan and let's start paying it down. But it's never overwhelming because I built up that confidence.
Right. I love hearing that. I love that. Can you explain the difference between, fixed expenses and then variable expenses and how you can account for them in a budget? Because, your variable ones are kind of, sometimes you be like,
Yeah. So fixed expenses are going to be those expenses that are the same every single month. So your mortgage or your rent or your car note, right? Those are going to be fixed expenses. Your variable expenses might be like utilities, groceries, things that you have to have them every month, but they're subject to change, right? Like in the winter, your utility bill is going to be different than your utility bill in the summer, especially in Florida. Like,
girl, it's stupid.
We already know.
Yes, it's already hot.
Exactly. So your fixed expenses are pretty much straight. Like, those are going to come out. What gets people are the variable expenses, because how do I accommodate for an expense that I don't know what it's going to be next month? And it was different last month. you find out the average. So I make my clients look at like the last 6 months or a year. And there are companies like in Florida, I think there's Tico. Tico will send you a bill and it will say what the average of like the last 6 months is or something on your bill. So, and you might also be able to call them and get that info, but you figure out what the average is, right? And so, for example, for my utilities, I think our average in Florida was like $75 or something. That was the average. Now, some months it was less, some months it was more. Every month, Nikki paid $75. Didn't care how much it was. If it was less, then I had a credit of $5 to $10. If it was more, then it would eat away at my credit because it was only $5 or $10 more. So when you talk about the variable expenses, think about the average of that expense and then make that payment every single month, assuming that the company allows you to have a credit, right? But when it comes to things like your groceries, it's going to be different. So give yourself a limit. Your max is $400. You meal plan, you get snacks, you make sure you know what you're cooking, what you're eating, and then you don't go over $400. Now, of course, we all got to eat. So if you go over $400, that's fine. But then the next
y'all don't do the 400.
Don't listen. Don't. I have a client whose grocery bill is like $1,000 a month.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, as long as y'all ain't up there near 1,000, we're good. But, if you go over your grocery bill this month, the next month you say, okay, instead of my spending money being $500, I'm going to reduce it by 50. I'm going to increase my grocery budget by 50. And so you accommodate your budget is a living, breathing document. It's going to change every month and you accommodate according to what you need.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And then what are some like common misconceptions when it comes to budgeting? And what would you like to kind of like clear up for people out there?
Oh man, the most common thing I think is people saying, well, two things. One is that budgeting is really restrictive. Oh my gosh, my budget is so restrictive. You can't do anything when you budget. And that's not true. The truth is when you start budgeting, you realize that you can't afford the lifestyle that you had last month. That's really what the truth is. Like I had a client balling, living life. I looked at their budget. Baby, you can't afford none of this. So we had to literally, I think they got like $80 a month for spending money. So to them, it's like my budget is really restrictive. But the truth is your budget is allowing you to afford what you can. So I think that's the number one misconception. The second thing, which I kind of mentioned earlier, is that people think budgeting means that you are poor or you have low income, etc. From the poorest clients that people might think is out there to the most wealthy person that's out there. Everyone needs to budget. I don't care how much money you make. Everyone needs to budget because it's going to help you get into a better position financially. So budgeting is not just for people who don't make a lot of money or who don't make any money. It is literally for everyone. Wealthy people, millionaires, everyone is budgeting.
I love it. I love it. Let's go. Let's go. So I'm going to shift over to something that I call the Econix 10. So I'm going to ask you 10 questions.
Okay.
We'll go from there. You ready?
Yes. Do I just got to throw out my answer real quick?
No, not real quick, but like quick enough.
Okay.
All right, cool. So first question is, what would you title this chapter in your life?
Ooh. I'm going to say, dang, that's a hard question. I'm going to say the hustle chapter.
See, this one, the budgeting question. I like it though. I like it. Number 2, what superpower would you have?
Ooh, this like visualizing strategies to reach goals. So if you tell me what your goal is, I will create a strategy to get you there as soon as possible.
I love it. I love it. Number 3, what would you invest in right now if money was not an issue?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Apple did just kind of drop something, interest
the
rate.
savings account. I was
Right.
like, what? 4 point something.
Girl might be a little interested.
I was like, okay. Yeah.
Apple is not playing with us.
Ah, that is a very aggressive move. That might be a game changer for banks are going to really feel that one. I mean, I'm curious to see how the financial landscape is going to not say change, but how institutions are going to respond to Apple, because Apple's $1 trillion company. They could probably be their own bank. They don't need Bank of America or any of these other banks. They probably loan the government money, as much money as they have for real. Right. So it's like looking at, that, like you only getting like 0.5, if that, 0.5, if 0.05 on a percent.
are at like the high yield savings accounts are at 3%. I think Citibank might be at like 4.7 or something.
Right.
But like traditional savings accounts,
Awful.
we're not getting that. Yeah, we're not getting that.
Yeah.
So I would say maybe Apple, but I also really love physical real estate. So probably that.
Okay, cool. Number 5. This is going to be a good one. 5 different guests, dead or alive, who's coming to your table?
You said 5 dinner guests?
5.
Okay. Missy Elliott, first and foremost.
Hey, let's go, Missy.
Listen, I don't care how random that might seem. Missy Elliott is the GOAT. Megan Thee Stallion.
Okay.
I really enjoy rap, by the way.
I'm a rap head too.
Who else? I gotta have, oh my gosh. I'm gonna say both of my grandmas gotta come. They're deceased, but they gotta come. They got that wisdom. Okay. And then dead or alive, I'm gonna say Tiffany Alicia, the Budgetnista. Okay. I feel like she's been on my mind today a lot. So those will be my top 5.
Okay, cool. I love it. And number 6, who is your celebrity crush?
Oh, celebrity crush. Hey, I would have to say Queen Latifah, because her hair is always so perfect. Like, y'all, don't roast me this. This woman has been on TV and in movies for decades, and her hair is
her herbal essence, not herbal essence, but not Mary Kay. She did makeup.
Oh my gosh,
makeup. I forget what it was.
Yeah, maybe it's Maybelline. I think
it might be.
I don't know. Her hair is flawless. Her hair is absolutely flawless. If I had to say another celebrity crush, oh my gosh, I'm gonna say Idris Elba. Okay. Like, he's a really good actor, and whether he's doing like American accent or like his, British mother accent, he's a really good actor all around.
That's what's up. I love it. So number 7, what's something that the average person would not know about you?
Ooh, the average person probably would not know like how loudly I blast my inappropriate music in my car.
What? Like, I feel you, because like
is that a Tampa thing?
It might be, because like I'm that dude. Like, I'm definitely playing music loud.
Windows rolled down. Music loud.
Like, I'm cooling. It's Florida. That's what we supposed to do.
And I'm rapping every single word in the song out loud.
And I don't care if nobody see me. Like, I'm in my zone. It's my element. It's getting me through my day. I'm right with it. I love it. That's funny.
Yeah, definitely that.
All right, number 8. What's your favorite productivity hack? Something you use to kind of get things done.
Ooh. So whenever I have really big projects, I will push them to the front of my to-do list for the day. So every single night before I fall asleep, I will make a to-do list for the following day. If I know that there's a big project that I'm like nervous about or anxious about, I will make it the first thing that has to get done before I can scroll, before I can do my workout or anything, because if I don't get that done, it's going to throw off my whole day. So pushing all the big projects to the front.
Right. So you know exactly what you got going on. You essentially you prepare for your day. That I love it. You prepare. That's most people don't. Number 8, actually number 9, name 3 of the most influential people in your life.
Ooh. Can I say my parents as like one?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Definitely my mom and dad. They started me out on my financial literacy journey as a child. They have been so helpful, giving me so much information. Like, it's insane. I need to break them off a couple of Black Girl Budget dollars. 2, I would definitely say my partner, who listens to me talk about Black Girl Budget every waking moment of the day, but then also offers really good feedback. Like, everyone is getting Black Girl Budget dollars because the creativity, the ideas, a lot of the stuff that y'all see me put on Black Girl Budget is really from my partner. Like, they're just like, why don't you do this? Why don't you try that? So I would definitely say those 2/3. And then let's see, third person, I have a mentor who is a millionaire. And she, like, when she first realized that I was passionate about budgeting, she was like, come here. Let me holler at you real quick. Let me help you out real quick.
Take one of my wings real quick.
So yeah, so she really got the fire under me to understand like some of the major concepts when it comes to bigger ideas in financing, and then how it relates to the budget is where I swooped in and was like, okay, I feel like we can make this a thing. So yeah, she's definitely been a really influential person in my life.
That's what's up. You know, it's not to hold side, but I got one more question left. But you know, when you talk about having a mentor, it is so, so important for you to have somebody to show you how, because one of the things that I've learned, man, on my short journey on this earth is that a lot of times it's been a lot easier for me to hit goals if I see somebody else do it. Exactly. And I know we don't really realize that, but like when you see somebody do it up close, then you know what it takes. You know what the day-to-day looks like. So now it's like, oh, that's what it is. So because a lot of people have this misconception about what $1 million means. They think that it's just money that the person doesn't have to work anymore. They don't have to do anything to get it. No, you just because you made $1 million don't mean you keeping $1 million. Exactly. You have to do those same actions that took you to get to that $1 million, to make that $1 million, and to grow that $1 million. And so it is extremely important to have a mentor or somebody in your life that can elevate you to where you're trying to go. You know, success leaves clues. So my biggest rule is pay attention to the man or woman who has what you want. Look at their lifestyle and see what clues that their lifestyle is leaving. Do they show up to the office every day? Do they get up early? Do they work out? Do they read? Just the little things, the intangibles the intangible things that turn into tangible things. Right. So you don't always see the relationship with those two, but it's very obvious once you start. And then it's like, dang, I should have been on this. And so I'm going a whole thing, but
listen, I will add one thing to that, because having a mentor is important. If you see someone who is doing what you want to do or what you're interested in, 9 times out of 10, people are going to be very excited to mentor you, to give you information, and to give back. I've even had people hit me up like, hey, you have a podcast. How do I start a podcast? And I'm like, I don't even know if we have enough time for me to tell you this in the Instagram message. Like, here's the top 10 things I can think of right now. But if you see someone who is on the level that you're trying to get to, reach out to them and ask if they'll mentor you. The worst they could say is no, in which case you still where you at right now. So
and just ask questions. Like if you have questions for them, like, hey, well, how did you get this? Or how did you earn this? A lot of times you just have to ask questions. People are willing to answer, but you got to reach out, you know? Number 10, PB&J or grilled cheese? Don't get this wrong.
PB&J.
Okay. I knew you was from Tampa. We right there. Okay, cool.
It's not even a question. Now, granted, I love a good grilled cheese, but it's peanut butter and jelly all day. So thank you. We like-minded. I appreciate that. Exactly.
So the last thing I have for you, Miss Nikki, is to tell everybody where to find your stuff. Tell them how to get to you. And guys, as always, I'm going to make sure that you have all of these links in the show notes, so that way you can easily access her, support her business, and the whole nine. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so it's at Black Girl Budget, the same way it sounds, at Black Girl Budget on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube. What else are we on? We're not on Pinterest yet, but we're thinking about it. So it is at Black Girl Budget. And then the website is blackgirlbudget.com. Like I said, a lot of the content that I give out on social media is the same thing that I'm telling my clients. Of course, I'm piecemealing it out, so I'm not overwhelming you guys. But if you're looking for a place to start, honestly, I'm a toot my own horn. But from an objective standpoint, Black Girl Budget is a great place to start, because I'm going to give you a lot of objective information that you can use and tangible tips that you can use in your everyday life. I'm not going to tell you just believe in yourself. I mean, do that too, but no, what you need to do is delete that Amazon app. That's what you need to do. Right.
I love it. So thank you so much, Nikki, for coming on. Y'all, this is Black Girl Budget. She is awesomebomb.com. And that's it, y'all. Y'all have a good one.
Y'all have a good one. Thanks for having me.
Woo-hoo.